I stared at the papers in my hands, the words petition for divorce, glaring back at me. My husband Robert stood across the kitchen, his face a mask of indifference. The ticking of the clock on the wall seemed to echo in the silence between us. Well, Robert's impatient voice cut through the air. Are you going to sign them or not, Alice? I looked up, meeting his cold gaze. Just like that? After 15 years of marriage, you're handing me divorce papers over breakfast. He shrugged, adjusting his tie. It's been coming for a while, hasn't it? Let's not pretend we're happy anymore. My hands trembled slightly, but I refused to let him see how much this was affecting me. And what about starting a family? What about all our plans? Robert's laugh was harsh. Plans? Alice, you couldn't even give me a child. What's the point of staying married? His words stung, each one a sharp reminder of my perceived failure. I thought about all the nights I'd cried myself to sleep, all the negative pregnancy tests, all the hope that had slowly drained away. And now this. You know what? I said, my voice steadier than I felt. You're right. Robert's eyebrows shot up in surprise. I am. I grabbed a pen from the counter and scribbled my signature on the dotted line. There. Happy now. For a moment, Robert looked taken aback. He clearly hadn't expected me to agree so readily. Yes. I suppose that's that then. Is there anything else? I asked, my tone clipped. He hesitated, then shook his head. No, that's all. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the details. As he turned to leave, I called out, Robert. He paused at the doorway, looking back at me. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. The shock on his face was almost worth the pain coursing through my chest. As soon as the front door slammed shut, I sank into a chair, my composure crumbling. The phone rang, startling me. I answered it with a shaky hello. Alice? It's Mom. Are you okay? You sound upset. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. Mom, Robert just left. He gave me divorce papers. Oh, sweetheart. My mother's voice was filled with concern. Do you want me to come over? No, I said quickly. I'm fine. Really. Alice Marie Thompson, don't you dare lie to your mother. Your father and I will be there in 20 minutes. Before I could protest, she had hung up. I sat there, staring at the phone, feeling numb. The doorbell rang exactly 19 minutes later. I opened it to find my parents, Patricia and John, standing there with worried expressions. Oh, honey, Mom said, pulling me into a hug. We're here for you. Dad squeezed my shoulder. Whatever you need, Alice. We've got your back. As they bustled into the house, fussing over me and making tea, I felt a small spark of warmth in the coldness that had settled over me. Maybe, just maybe, I could get through this. But as I sipped the tea Mom had made, a wave of nausea hit me. I barely made it to the bathroom before losing my breakfast. Alice. Mom's voice came through the door. Are you all right? I wiped my mouth, a sudden realization dawning on me. Mom. I called out, my voice shaky. I think I might be pregnant. The silence on the other side of the door was deafening. Then Dad's voice. Well, isn't that something? Something indeed. As I sat on the cold bathroom floor, I couldn't help but laugh at the irony. After years of trying, here I was, possibly pregnant and newly divorced. Life, it seemed, had a twisted sense of humor. But as I placed a hand on my stomach, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this wasn't the end. Maybe it was just the beginning. The pregnancy test stared back at me, 2 pink lines confirming what I'd suspected. I was pregnant. After years of trying, it had finally happened. Just as my marriage was falling apart. I sank onto the edge of the bathtub, my mind reeling. How could I tell Robert? Would he even care? The thought of facing him made my stomach churn. A gentle knock on the bathroom door startled me. Alice? Are you okay in there? It was my mother's voice, filled with concern. I opened the door, wordlessly holding out the test. Mom's eyes widened, then filled with tears. Oh, sweetheart, she whispered, pulling me into a hug. As we walked back to the living room, Dad looked up from his newspaper. One glance at our faces told him everything. Well, I'll be, he he said softly. Looks like we've got a grandchild on the way. The warmth of their support washed over me, but it couldn't completely erase the dread I felt about telling Robert. I picked up my phone, my finger hovering over his name. You don't have to tell him right away, Mom said, sensing my hesitation. I shook my head. No, I need to do this now. The phone rang 3 times before Robert answered, his voice curt. What is it, Alice? I'm pregnant, I blurted out. The silence that followed seemed to stretch for an eternity. Finally, Robert spoke, his tone flat. Are you sure it's mine? His words hit me like a slap. How dare you? I hissed. You know I've never been with anyone else. Right, he scoffed. Well, this doesn't change anything. The divorce is still happening. I ended the call, my hands shaking with anger and hurt. Dad was on his feet, his face red with fury. That no-good son of a dash. John, Mom warned, glancing at me. I held up a hand. It's okay, Dad. I'm actually relieved. At least now I know exactly where I stand. As I said the words, I realized they were true. Robert's reaction had confirmed what I'd known deep down for years. He didn't love me, and he probably never had. Memories flooded back, snapshots of our marriage that I'd tried so hard to ignore. Robert criticizing my cooking, my appearance, my inability to conceive. The constant put-downs, the cold silences. The way he'd make me feel small and insignificant. I can't believe I put up with it for so long, I murmured. Mom squeezed my hand. You were trying to make it work, honey. There's no shame in that. But there is in staying, I said, a new resolve forming within me. I'm done being Robert's punching bag. This baby deserves better, and so do I. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Owen, my old friend from high school who had become a lawyer. Heard about the divorce. How are you holding up? I smiled, remembering Owen's kind eyes and easy laugh. We'd lost touch over the years, but he'd always been there for me when it mattered. Actually, I typed back. I could use some legal advice. And maybe a friend. His response was immediate. Name the time and place. I'll be there. As I set down my phone, I felt a glimmer of hope. For the first time in years, I was making a decision for myself. Not for Robert or our marriage. Mom, Dad, I said, straightening my shoulders. I think it's time I moved back home for a while. This baby and I need a fresh start. They both nodded, pride shining in their eyes. Welcome home, sweetheart, Dad said, his voice gruff with emotion. As we began to plan, I felt a kick from within my first. I placed a hand on my belly, a fierce protectiveness washing over me. Don't worry, little one, I whispered. We're going to be just fine. The road ahead would be tough, but for the first time in years, I felt ready to face it. Robert had underestimated me for the last time. Now it was my turn to show him and the world exactly what Alice Thompson was made of. The coffee shop bustled with mid-morning activity as I sat across from Owen, my hands wrapped around a steaming mug of decaf. His familiar, kind eyes studied me with concern. So, you're really pregnant? Owen asked, his voice low. I nodded, a mix of emotions swirling inside me. Yep. Talk about timing, right? Owen's brow furrowed. And Robert's reaction was less than stellar? That's putting it mildly, I said, recounting Robert's cold response. Owen's jaw clenched as I spoke, his lawyer's mind clearly at work. Alice, I hate to ask this, but are you sure you want to go through with the divorce now? With a baby on the way, you might be entitled to more support. I shook my head firmly. No, Owen. I'm done. This baby deserves better than a father who doesn't want it. He nodded, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. Okay, then we'll make sure you get everything you're entitled to. As we discussed legal strategies, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Robert. We need to talk. Come to the house. I showed Owen the message, my stomach churning. I should go, I said reluctantly. Owen's eyes flashed with concern. Want me to come with you? No, I need to do this alone, I replied, gathering my things. But, can you be on standby? He nodded, his expression serious. Of course. Call me if you need anything. The drive to my old home felt surreal. As I pulled into the driveway, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever was to come. Robert opened the door before I could knock, his face unreadable. Come in, he said curtly. I followed him into the living room, memories of happier times flashing through my mind. How had we ended up here? I've been thinking about the baby, Robert began, his voice oddly hesitant. Maybe we should reconsider the divorce. I stared at him, shocked. What? He ran a hand through his hair, looking uncomfortable. Look, I know I reacted badly before, but a child needs both parents. We could try to make it work. For a moment, hope fluttered in my chest. Then I remembered all the years of emotional abuse, the constant belittling, the cold indifference. No, Robert, I said firmly. We can't. His face hardened. Is this about the lawyer? Owen, right? Are you too? What? No, I exclaimed, anger rising. This is about us, Robert. About how you've treated me for years. I won't subject our child to that. Robert's eyes narrowed. So that's it? You're just going to take my child away from me? I'm not taking anything, I shot back. You're the one who wanted this divorce. You can't have it both ways. He stepped closer, his voice low and menacing. Watch me. I'll fight you for custody, Alice. You know I'll win. Fear gripped me, but I stood my ground. No, you won't. Not when the court hears how you've treated me. Robert's face contorted with rage. He raised his hand, and for a terrifying moment, I thought he might strike me. Instead, he knocked a vase off the side table, sending it crashing to the floor. I flinched, instinctively protecting my belly. This is exactly why I'm leaving, I said, my voice shaking. Goodbye, Robert. As I hurried to my car, my phone buzzed again. It was Owen. Everything okay? I typed back quickly. No. Can you meet me? I need help. His response was immediate. On my way. Stay safe. As I drove away, tears blurring my vision, I felt a flutter in my stomach, the baby moving. I placed a hand on my belly, a fierce determination rising within me. It's okay, little one, I whispered. Mommy's going to fight for us. And we're going to win. The sharp pain in my abdomen jolted me awake. I gasped, clutching my belly as fear gripped my heart. No, no, no. This couldn't be happening. I fumbled for my phone, dialing my mother's number with shaking hands. Mom, I choked out when she answered. I think something's wrong with the baby. Within minutes, Mom and Dad were at my door, helping me into the car. The drive to the hospital was a blur of worry and silent prayers. In the emergency room, a kind-faced nurse ushered me into an examination room. The doctor will be here soon, she assured me, squeezing my hand. As I lay on the cold exam table, my mind raced. I needed to call Robert. Despite everything, he was still the father. With a deep breath, I dialed his number. What is it, Alice? His voice was groggy and irritated. Robert, I'm at the hospital. There might be something wrong with the baby. There was a pause, then, what do you want me to do about it? His callousness stunned me. I thought you'd want to know. It's your child, too. Is it? He scoffed. How do I know you haven't been sleeping with that lawyer friend of yours? Anger flared within me, momentarily overshadowing my fear. How dare you, Robert? You know I've never been unfaithful. Whatever, he muttered. Call me if there's any news. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, tears welling in my eyes. How could I have ever loved this man? The doctor's arrival interrupted my thoughts. After a thorough examination and some tests, she smiled reassuringly. Good news, Mrs. Thompson. It seems to be just some normal discomfort. Your baby is doing fine. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. As I was getting dressed, my phone buzzed with a text from Robert. If you lose this baby, don't bother trying to reconcile. I'm done. I sat heavily on the exam table, my emotions a tumultuous mix of anger, hurt, and determination. In that moment, I made a decision. I was done too. Done with Robert's emotional abuse, done with his manipulations, done with hoping he'd change. As Mom and Dad drove me home, I broke the silence. "I need to talk to Owen," I said firmly. "It's time to finalize this divorce." Dad glanced at me in the rearview mirror, his eyes filled with concern and pride. "Are you sure, sweetheart?" I nodded, my hand resting protectively on my belly. "I'm sure, Dad. This baby and I deserve better." Back at home, I called Owen. His voice was thick with sleep, but he answered on the second ring. "Alice? Is everything okay?" I took a deep breath. "Owen, I need your help. It's time to end this marriage for good." There was a pause, then Owen's voice came back, clear and determined. "I'm here for you, Alice. We'll get through this together." As I hung up, I felt a strange mix of sadness and hope. The life I had known was over, but a new one was beginning. One where I would be strong, independent, and the best mother I could be. I walked to the window, watching the sun rise over the neighborhood. It was a new day in more ways than one. Robert had underestimated me for the last time. Now it was my turn to show him and myself just how strong I could be. As if in agreement, I felt a small flutter in my belly. I smiled, placing my hand over the spot. "That's right, little one," I whispered. "We've got this. You and me against the world." For the first time in months, I felt truly hopeful. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I was ready to face them. For myself and for my child. The afternoon sun filtered through the curtains as I sorted through the last of my belongings in what used to be our bedroom. My hand brushed against a small velvet box, and I opened it to find the diamond earrings Robert had given me on our 5th anniversary. A bittersweet smile crossed my face as I remembered how happy we'd been then. The shrill ring of Robert's cell phone, forgotten on the nightstand, startled me. I hesitated, then answered it, thinking it might be important. "Hello, Robert's phone," I said. A woman's voice, sultry and unfamiliar, purred through the speaker. "Hey, baby. I missed you last night. When are you coming over?" My blood ran cold. "Who is this?" I demanded, my voice shaking. There was a pause, then, "Oh my God. Is this Alice?" The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "Yes, it is. Now, who are you?" I'm Sophia," the voice replied, suddenly uncertain. "Look, I'm so sorry. I didn't know he was still married." I gripped the phone tighter, anger and hurt warring inside me. "How long?" I managed to ask. Sophia hesitated. 6 months, she finally admitted. "He told me you two were separated." 6 months. The words echoed in my head. All those late nights at the office, the business trips, the cold shoulders. It all made sense now. "Thank you for being honest," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "Goodbye, Sophia." I ended the call and sank onto the bed, my hand instinctively going to my growing belly. How could Robert do this to us? To our unborn child? As if on cue, I heard the front door open. "Alice," Robert called out. "Are you here?" Anger surged through me as I stormed downstairs. Robert stood in the living room, his expression wary as he took in my flushed face and clenched fists. "How could you?" I hissed, tears stinging my eyes. "How could you cheat on me?" Robert's face paled. "What are you talking about? Don't lie to me," I shouted, my composure cracking. Sophia called. "I know everything." For a moment, Robert looked like he might deny it. Then his shoulders sagged. "Alice, I can explain dash." "Explain what?" I cut him off. "How you've been lying to me for months. How you made me feel like our problems were my fault." "I never meant for it to happen," he said weakly. "Things between us were so strained, and Sophia was just there." His words hit me like a physical blow. "So this is my fault? Because I couldn't get pregnant fast enough for you." Robert ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident on his face. "That's not what I meant. Look, can't we just talk about this?" "Talk?" I laughed bitterly. "We're way past talking, Robert. I want you out of this house. Now." His eyes narrowed. "You can't kick me out. This is my house too." "Not anymore," I said, a newfound strength in my voice. I've already spoken to Owen. We're filing for divorce, and I'm keeping the house. Robert's face contorted with anger. You've been talking to Owen behind my back? Are you sleeping with him too? The accusation stung, but I refused to let him see how much it hurt. Unlike you, Robert, I know what loyalty means. Now get out before I call the police. For a tense moment, I thought he might refuse. Then, with a muttered curse, he grabbed his keys and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. As the sound of his car faded away, I sank onto the couch, my whole body shaking. The baby kicked, as if sensing my distress, and I placed a protective hand over my belly. It's okay, little one, I whispered. We're going to be okay. I reached for my phone, dialing Owen's number. When he answered, I took a deep breath. Owen, it's Alice. I need your help. It's time to end this marriage for good. As I hung up, a strange sense of calm washed over me. The road ahead would be tough, but for the first time in years, I felt ready to face it. Robert had underestimated me for the last time. Now it was my turn to show him, and the world, exactly what Alice Thompson was made of. The coffee shop buzzed with activity, but I barely noticed as I stared at the stack of papers Owen had just placed in front of me. Each page was filled with evidence of Robert's betrayal: bank statements, hotel receipts, even photos of him with Sophia. Are you sure you want to go through with this, Alice? Owen asked, his voice gentle. I nodded, my jaw set. I have to, Owen. For myself and for my baby. He squeezed my hand reassuringly. Okay, we'll file for divorce on grounds of adultery. With this evidence, we have a strong case. As we discussed strategy, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Robert. We need to talk. Come to the house. Now. I showed Owen the message, my heart racing. I should go, I said, gathering my things. Owen's brow furrowed with concern. I don't like this, Alice. Let me come with you. No, I insisted. I need to face him alone. But, can you be nearby just in case? He nodded, his expression serious. Of course. I'll be right outside if you need me. The drive to my old home felt surreal. As I pulled into the driveway, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever was to come. Robert opened the door before I could knock, his face a mask of fury. Get in here, he growled. I stepped inside, my hand instinctively going to my swollen belly. What do you want, Robert? He held up a manila envelope. Care to explain this? He snarled, dumping its contents onto the coffee table. Photos of me and Owen at the cafe, bank statements, legal documents, all spilled out. My blood ran cold. You've been spying on me? Had to make sure my wife wasn't trying to screw me over. He sneered. Looks like I was right. You and that lawyer think you're so clever. We're not doing anything wrong, I shot back. Unlike you and Sophia. Robert's face contorted with rage. You bitch, he hissed, stepping towards me. You think you can take everything from me? My house, my money, my child. I stood my ground, even as fear coursed through me. It's not about taking anything, Robert. It's about what's fair. He laughed bitterly. Fair? I'll show you fair. He grabbed a framed photo of us from the mantel and hurled it against the wall. Glass shattered everywhere. I flinched, my arms wrapping protectively around my belly. Stop it, Robert. You're scaring me. Good, he snarled, advancing on me. Maybe now you'll listen. You're not leaving me, Alice. And you're sure as hell not taking my child. As he reached for me, I stumbled backwards, my foot catching on the rug. I felt myself falling, unable to stop my descent. Time seemed to slow as I hit the ground, a sharp pain lancing through my abdomen. No, I gasped, clutching my belly. No, no, no. Robert stood over me, his anger giving way to shock. Alice? Are you? Is the baby okay? I couldn't answer, the pain too intense. Warm liquid trickled down my legs, and I knew with horrifying certainty that something was very wrong. Owen. I managed to choke out, fumbling for my phone. Call Owen. Robert hesitated for a moment, then grabbed my phone. As he dialed, I heard him mutter, "Oh God, what have I done?" The room started to spin, black spots dancing at the edges of my vision. I thought I heard Owen's voice, then sirens in the distance. As consciousness slipped away, one thought echoed in my mind. I had to protect my baby. No matter what, I had to protect my baby. The last thing I saw was Robert's face, pale and terrified, as paramedics rushed into the room. Then everything went black. The harsh fluorescent lights of the hospital room buzzed overhead as I lay in bed, my hands resting protectively on my swollen belly. The steady beep of the fetal monitor was a comforting reminder that my babies were still fighting. "Twins," I whispered, still in awe of the news. "We're having twins." The door creaked open, and Owen poked his head in. "How are you feeling, Alice?" I managed a weak smile. "Better, thanks to you." He pulled up a chair beside my bed, his face etched with concern. "The doctor says you need to stay on bed rest for the remainder of your pregnancy. No more stress." I nodded, then hesitated. "Have you heard from Robert?" Owen's jaw tightened. "He's been calling nonstop, demanding to see you. I've kept him away for now, but what?" I prompted. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "He's threatening to contest the divorce, Alice. He says he'll fight for full custody of the twins." My heart raced, the monitor beeping faster in response. "He can't do that. Not after everything he's done. We have a strong case," Owen assured me. "But it's going to be a fight." Just then, a commotion erupted in the hallway. Robert's voice, loud and angry, carried through the door. "I have a right to see my wife and children." Owen stood, positioning himself between me and the door. "I'll handle this." But before he could move, the door burst open. Robert stormed in, his face flushed with anger. "Alice," he growled, "we need to talk." I instinctively curled around my belly, protecting my unborn children. "There's nothing to talk about, Robert." He thrust a stack of papers at me. "These are new divorce terms. You get the house and a fair settlement, but I get joint custody of the twins." I stared at the papers, then back at Robert. "You can't be serious." "Deadly," he snapped. "Sign them, or I'll make your life a living hell." Owen stepped forward. "That's enough, Robert. You need to leave." Robert's eyes blazed. "Stay out of this, you homewrecker. This is between me and my wife." "Ex-wife," I corrected, finding strength in my voice. "And Owen is here because I want him here." Robert's face contorted with rage. He lunged forward, reaching for the papers. In the chaos, he knocked over the fetal monitor, sending it crashing to the floor. The steady beep that had been my lifeline suddenly went silent. Panic gripped me. "My babies," I gasped, clutching my belly. "Something's wrong." Owen reacted instantly, hitting the call button and restraining Robert. Nurses rushed in, quickly assessing the situation. "Her blood pressure is skyrocketing," one nurse said urgently. "We need to get her to the ER now." As they wheeled me out, I caught a glimpse of Robert's face, pale and shocked. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I had once loved, buried beneath years of resentment and betrayal. In the operating room, everything was a blur of bright lights and urgent voices. The doctor's words cut through the haze. "We need to perform an emergency C-section." Fear and determination warred within me. "Save my babies," I pleaded. "Whatever it takes, save my babies." As the anesthesia took hold, I thought of everything that had led to this moment. The years of struggle, the pain, the betrayal. But also the love, the hope, and the fierce desire to protect the new lives growing inside me. With my last conscious thought, I made a vow. No matter what happened, I would fight. For myself, for my children, for the future we deserved. The world faded to black, the sound of my baby's first cries echoing in my ears like a promise of hope. The courtroom was silent as I stood, facing Robert across the aisle. My twins, now 6 months old, were safely with my parents. This was the moment everything had been building towards. "Your Honor," Owen began, his voice steady, "we have irrefutable evidence of Mr. Thompson's infidelity and emotional abuse." As Owen presented our case, I watched Robert's face. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. The mask of confidence he'd worn for so long was crumbling. When it was Robert's turn to speak, he fumbled, his usual eloquence deserting him. Your Honor, I made mistakes, but I love my children. I deserve to be in their lives. The judge's gaze was stern. Mr. Thompson, love isn't just about feelings. It's about actions. And your actions have shown a distinct lack of care for your family's well-being. As the judge continued, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. Years of pain, doubt, and fear were finally being acknowledged. In light of the evidence presented, the judge concluded, I'm granting full custody to Mrs. Thompson, with supervised visitation for Mr. Thompson. Furthermore, Mr. Thompson will pay alimony and child support as outlined in these documents. Robert's face paled. But Your Honor, my decision is final, Mr. Thompson. I suggest you take this opportunity to reflect on your actions and make amends. As we left the courtroom, Robert approached me, his swagger gone. Alice, please. Don't take my children away from me. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw not the man who had hurt me, but a broken person who had lost everything. Robert, I said softly, I'm not taking them away, but you need to earn the right to be in their lives. Start by being the father they deserve. He nodded, a glimmer of understanding in his eyes. As he walked away, I felt the last remnants of our past dissolve. Owen squeezed my hand. You did it, Alice. It's over. But it wasn't over. It was a new beginning. Months passed. I watched my twins grow, their laughter filling our home with joy. Robert, true to his word, attended parenting classes and anger management sessions. Slowly, cautiously, he began to build a relationship with our children. One sunny afternoon, as I sat in the garden watching the twins play, Owen joined me. Penny for your thoughts? He asked. I smiled, leaning into him. I was just thinking about how far we've come. How far I've come. He wrapped an arm around me. You're the strongest person I know, Alice. You've been through so much and you've come out shining. I turned to face him, seeing the love and admiration in his eyes. I couldn't have done it without you, Owen. You've been my rock through all of this. Alice, he said softly, I've loved you since we were kids. I know the timing might not be right, but I silenced him with a kiss. When we parted, we were both smiling. The timing is perfect, I whispered. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the garden, I looked at my children playing, at Owen by my side, and I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. I thought about the woman I used to be, scared, insecure, always seeking approval. And I marveled at the woman I'd become, strong, independent, capable of fierce love and unwavering determination. The road hadn't been easy, but every step had led me here, to this moment of perfect contentment. I had faced my fears, stood up to my abuser, and fought for my children and myself. And in doing so, I had found not just freedom, but a love deeper and truer than I'd ever known. As Owen and I tucked the twins into bed that night, I realized that this wasn't just an ending. It was the beginning of a beautiful new chapter in our lives, and I was ready at last to embrace it with open arms.